And in a real sense, we are moving, and we cannot afford to stop because Alabama and because our nation has a date with destiny.
The goal of the Civil Rights Trip is to get students out of their environment, their day-to-day living, to see another part of the United States. And the Civil Rights Trip gives students the opportunity to see the South, a different culture, different landscape. But most of all, just to get students to see that their world is bigger than the town they live in. We are looking forward to having the students be engaged in learning history, learning about their past, and how they're connected to it. But most of all, seeing people that went through history. This is an opportunity for our students to go through the South, to visit historically black universities, to talk to people that were a part of the civil rights movement. And this experience hopefully will engage them in their future plans, but if not, it will give them the opportunity to see a different part of the world. High school students are perfect for this trip. It gives them the opportunity to follow up when they get back to class about exactly what they've learned about the civil rights history, especially through American history. But also, it's a time for high school students to branch out. One of the reasons that we visit historically black colleges is that they soon will be going through that process. And this is another avenue for their education, not to be limited just in this area. High school students also can be engaged and are more accepting of change, especially since we meet with other high school students on this trip. And it gives them an opportunity to learn and grow, but just to take advantage of seeing a different part of the United States.
At the Olympic Park.
So far, this trip has been amazing. I've been able to learn more things about the civil rights, the human rights. It's all been a pleasure. I just hope for more things to come, more learning experience. And right now, I'm about to make a wish. If this died, it's still passing. Here we go.
What was the most powerful thing you saw?
The most powerful things I saw was we put on headphones, and it felt like you were in there, and it was like basically what it feels like to be in a prison with everybody, and all you just hear is people killing each other. And like I feel that was powerful because a lot of people don't know about it, and I just feel like it's important for people to know about it.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say, we aren't going to let any...
He leads a march. He gets arrested. He's expecting people to join him, and no one does. The adults are just too scared to go march. You know, people that want to lose their jobs. And so what happened was, it was high school students, junior high school students, and some kids as young as 7, who suddenly went out there, went into the fire hoses and police dogs, and there were so many young people who participated.
Come to the civil rights era and they look at what's happened here, which is y'all are doing. And like Richard says, those things have kind of been done, and there's some things that need to be continued. But it's important to look at what might happen in the future. Gay rights, for example, that's a big issue. It covers a bunch of subjects, and it's sometimes uncomfortable to speak out on those issues. Sometimes your leader's not with you, who knows? But those are big, important issues. One of the biggest ones, you drive around in your bus or how you're going, you're going to see signs that say, we'll loan you money in your car, or we'll cash a check for you, those kind of things. And that really does take advantage of poor people. Interest rates are several big high interest rates, 400% or 500% a year. It's amazing interest rates. That's one of our new projects here, is economic justice for poor people. And it really takes a lot of people to fight back on that.
Okay, so my experience in the house was amazing. I learned a lot of things, that Martin Luther King would rip his sister's dolls, and I would have never expected that from him. And that every time guests came over, they would have to leave the room and sleep in cartons. And every time guests came over as well, they had to leave the room, and they weren't allowed to speak unless they were directed by an adult. So the dinner table was the only place they were allowed to speak, and now we're here. So it was a good experience learning about his house and learning when he lived there. And now the house is it's still owned by his family, but it's leased to the government so that people like us can go and see it.
If you don't have a way to go to your job, don't ride. Stay at home. The time is now. The time is now. If not now, when? If not here, where? If not us, who? We shall overcome. Tomorrow, buses may roll, but we won't ride.
How do you feel about today's service?
I think that the service went really well. Like, going in, I just kind of like felt the unity, like everyone was together, especially like with the songs. It was just very like uplifting, and also with like the sermon and like what the what the preacher was preaching about. She talked a lot about unity and like unity between like different, not even like different religions, but like different races, and just how like with justice, like to have justice you need to have unity, because if there's no unity then you can't really have like equal rights for any minority. Thank you.
All done.
My favorite part of today's sermon was when the pastor was talking about like we are stuck in between celebrating and also like trying to move forward and improve things. That is very relatable to everything that has happened and many current events, because like even though there's still not as much slavery, for example, there's still racism, there's still like people being put down for what they want to express. And I just really like that the pastor was able to connect religion and unity to everything that has happened in our lives.
So we were just at the Martin Luther King Museum over there, and we watched a video and we walked around. There was a list of Jim Crow laws, and what I noticed about the Jim Crow laws is that the Jim Crow laws weren't made to be. What I noticed about the Jim Crow laws is that most of the Jim Crow laws weren't temporary. Like segregation wasn't supposed to be a temporary thing. Like most of the laws ended in for now all shall be forever prohibited. And I found that very interesting because I understand the Jim Crow laws for like to separate, but they were meant to stay there. Like it wasn't a thing like, oh, we'll just keep it there for now, then we'll implement more. It's like, no, this is how it is. It's going to be there forever. And I found that very interesting because it was like, you don't really expect that now.
Hi. Speak up.
So at the movie, I learned more things about Martin Luther King that I did not learn at school. One thing I learned was how he fought. Like we learned how he fought, but like he also didn't really care about anything. He just cared to like help, trying to help people. Like if they're hungry, like try to help them, and like try to help people, especially like black folks, to be free. And like it showed like his bravery and everything that he's done. And also I learned how like a lot of people were mad at him, but he didn't really care because he just tried to do the best and just try to see. He was also a very powerful speaker because he also told other people to, like what they should do, and because he was a pacifist and like not to go to violence.
Just as I say, we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around. We aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about...
The little ordinary thing that everyone ought to do. I'm living in a kind of daydream. I'm happy as a king and foolish, though it may seem to me that's everything. There I tell you, I'll give to you. You never know how slow the moment goes till I'm there to you.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
New Orleans is probably the most beautiful and fun city I've ever been to. The streets were filled with talent, and the warmth in the air had me thinking I was at the beach. We were able to try new foods and visit the French quarters. We were able to take a trolley and see more monuments. I learned about a black regiment in the army and how they were separated. I love the city. It was so fun. I want to plan another trip there.
New Orleans reminds me of Las Vegas. The beautiful palm trees, the large amount of hotels just in one area, and the different types of people. This was where I had my first beignet and where I saw many horse-drawn carriages in a row. We went to a flea market, which was really cool because I got to see some more diversity from the people selling.
In Atlanta, it started with entering the Civil Rights and Human Rights Museum. When I entered the museum, I got hit with an ambiance of empowerment. When we started walking down, I felt like I went back in time to experience how the civil rights was. I was able to learn more about Martin Luther King Jr. For example, when Martin Luther King was in his house and people said they were going to bomb his home, Now he got scared and wanted to quit, but he kept on going because he did not want to leave his work unfinished. Things like these is something I did not learn at school, which I find empowering, how he fought really hard and did not quit.
The Medgar Evers Museum was the best museum in my opinion. It was very interactive, and I learned very interesting facts about how segregation was never fair. About 43 black children were assigned to a teacher in their schools as to where 25 white students were assigned to a teacher in their school. We also had the opportunity to meet Medgar Evers' nephew and learn about how his parents were involved. We also saw where Medgar Evers was shot and the community was in bad condition. It was a great opportunity, and I would like to recommend it to anyone.
Medgar Evers was known as the man to move Mississippi forward. He was motivated to improve conditions for everyone and not just people of color. So he educated and organized people to vote. He was an NAACP field secretary who started the NAACP youth councils. Like many other threats and attempts were made on his life. He was later killed by a white man named Byron De La Beckwith, who was convicted 30 years after the murder.
The Emmett Till part of the trip shocked me. It was very sad because all of his exhibits were in bad condition. It was interesting learning that his accuser and how she had lied, and honestly disappointing, because if she hadn't lied, he would be alive. I also liked how his mom made the funeral and opened the coffin. One, because it would open the nation's eyes. Mississippi was much different from back home. It was quiet and very small. It was rural, and I had never seen streets so abandoned and quiet in my life.
Emmett Till was a 14-year-old person of color who was tortured and murdered by Roy Bryant and J.W. Millam. Hoping no one would find his mutilated body, they attached over 70 pounds of a metal fan and dumped him into the Tallahatchie River.
I was able to learn that not only men made movements, but also women and kids did. A woman named Rosa Parks shook the world when she did not want to get off the bus. That started the bus boycott and made bus drivers lose a lot of money. I also learned more about the bombing of Birmingham, as well as how the Ku Klux Klan also were a major threat to the people of color or anyone who supported the people of color. It was cool to see how the children would leave the school to support the march, and the teachers would support them the whole way through, but did not participate because they did not want to lose their jobs.
Please move to the back of the bus. I need that seat now. Please move back. If you can sit there in other buses, suppose you get off and into one of them. If you don't move out of that seat, I'll have you arrested. Get up from there.
In 1955, if you had not moved by this point, you would be arrested.
Beale Street was a great experience. It was not as busy as Mr. and Mrs. Mayo had experienced before. The group was able to go looking around without the adults for a little while so that we could get some souvenirs. We ended seeing this amazing 3-man band that played beautifully. For dinner, we went to a restaurant that had live hillbilly music. The group got up to dance while the adults filmed the awesome moves.
It was 2:45. I was digging her, and she was digging me. a little while, but I finally got it fixed.
Beale Street was a fun experience. The street was filled with stores different from back home. There was a band playing blues and jazz music, and we sat and supported them. They gave us a shout out. We also went to a restaurant where a country band was playing. I stepped out of my comfort zone and decided to dance to the music with my friends. The stores were much different and the streets were busy. It was fun and it was great. It was a very different experience.
It was quarter to 6. Took a little while, but I finally got it fixed. Did my watch and it was quarter to 8. She made a little wiggle, made me stretch.
The Lorraine Motel was where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. There were many opinions on who did it, if they had help, and how they did it. Ariana and I had a little fun deciding where the shooter was most likely would have been, and if there was more than one. Dr. King was having lighthearted conversation with other civil rights activists, so at least he was a little happy before he died.
The Lorraine Hotel was where MLK Jr. was shot. I saw a movie about how the slaves were taken and brought there to this country. I learned that the slaves were expected to get 160 to 300 pounds of cotton, and because we went cotton picking, I know that it would be hard to get that much. The museum also spoke more on the Black Panthers and how they provided free breakfast programs. I saw where MLK Jr. was staying before he got shot. I saw where he was shot and learned all the conspiracy theories. It was a great experience. I'm very glad I could go on this trip because I learned a lot about civil rights and gained new knowledge.
Our final day of the trip, we went to the Lorraine Motel, the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee. Our tour through that museum is a culmination of everything we've witnessed and seen over the last 5 days of the trip. But it was unique this year. We had the opportunity to meet with students from New Canaan, Connecticut, that had also just completed a similar civil rights trip. So our students know that they're not alone in learning history, but also they connected as they themselves, 9th grade students, had a chance to speak with our students about history and about what they've learned. Another encounter our students had was at the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum. As we were going through the museum, students had a chance to see different videos, different artifacts from the civil rights movement and also from slavery. They also had a chance to meet the nephew of slain civil rights leader Medgar Evers. He went to the museum to confirm the history that his uncle went through. And our students had a chance to ask him questions about his uncle. This is a memory that they'll never forget. And this is some of the instances that we look forward to having each year as students go down there, to actually talk about history with someone that went through that history. The results of this trip will be seen years ahead, not right now, because students took in a lot over those 6 days. In those 6 days, we visited over 8 cities, 10 museums, and met numerous people that are supporting the movement presently and people that went through the movement. The effects of those talks and those videos and traveling over 1,000 miles to the South will be far-reaching. Students will probably look back on this trip when they're in college in that history course and actually can say to the professor, I went to these places. But as for this trip, the students were able to touch history as we went through Mississippi at the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum.